Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Design Cinema. This is Fengzu speaking, and this is episode 78, Environmental Thumbnails. And I have to apologize for the long delay, but at least we have one before the end of the year. This is actually December 24th, Christmas Eve actually. And we're operating with a skeleton crew here in the office, nobody around, and so I thought, okay, finally I got some time off to make a video for you guys. And the reason for the delay is actually many. Most of it has to do with developments at the school. We're growing pretty quickly this year, or far faster than we thought we would. So we've been doing a lot of expansion type of planning, and I'll review to you that later in the video. But let's first just jump in to what you see on the screen here. Is you're probably asking, Fane, what are you doing? What is all this craziness that's happening on the screen? This makes no sense. There's no line drawing. There's no planning. And that's sort of the point of this video. Now, in the past, we have done a couple of environmental stuff, such as the RPG landscapes, as well as even the Final Fantasy VII redesign. You're seeing something that looks similar to this, but the main difference here is that I want to show you guys another path to creativity, which is using mistakes and randomness and chaos to arrive at solutions versus the traditional way of, say, start with the line drawing or start with thumbnails and get your ideas out and then refine that and then paint that and then refine. Now that is probably the 90% way of how most of us work, myself included, because that is a very standardized pipeline. It gives you order, it gives you a certain control over your production pipeline. But sometimes, for both students as well as professionals, you want to alter that pipeline a little bit. You want to go outside of your norm, because creativity doesn't always come from a straight line. It doesn't come from truly tested formulas, if you want to put it that way. Sometimes you want to almost throw things up completely against the way you've been working and see, can you have your brain arrive at a different solution? Here at the school, I like to call this method looking at clouds, right? And I think I mentioned this previously as well, is that everyone who look into clouds, especially the huge cumulus clouds, you get all these cool patterns in it, everybody see different things in it. And if you don't have those clouds in front of you, you have to basically get those ideas purely from your head. You don't have any visuals to work off of, right? Because I think when you're looking at a cloud, you don't know what you're looking at. You look up and go, hey, that looks like a face, or that looks like a mountain. Those results are coming from that the shapes of the clouds, as well as whatever previous past or your visual library has built for you in the past, and you combine those two to make imageries. So the result is very different for a lot of people. And what I'm doing here essentially is creating a board of chaotic clouds, of patterns, of shapes. And the subject matter of the photos I'm throwing in, you see them just random kind of clip art, random small images. They're not high resolution. I'm just trying my best to create accidents, to create mistakes. Because some of the best ways sometimes to create a new idea is to go from complete unplanned setups. In this case, it's just taking images almost out of whelm. There's almost no planning in terms of what image I'm choosing. I'm kind of just looking through these thumbnails, like, okay, this one, just kind of throw it in there and see what happens as I collage. I put these layers on different settings, on overlay, on soft light, on multiply, just looking at contrast really of shapes that are born out of this almost chaotic creation. And out of that, my imagination hopefully will get sparked to see things I normally might not see if I was starting this with a line drawing. Because especially for those who worked in the business for quite a long time, you develop this pipeline of approaching different projects. For landscapes, you could be starting with some rough paintings, or perhaps for some of you guys, you might start with a line drawing. And if you've done it enough, you start getting into a routine. So even for projects in which clients want something, say, very different than what's come before, you still end up drawing things that you're so used to doing. You have a little bit of a pipeline, and it's hard to get out of that. The longer you work in the business, at least for me, the harder it is to get out of your comfort zone, because and it's good, right? Comfort zone is good for production because you can't work chaotically on every project. You have no restrictions of time, you have no restrictions of your results. So most of us do work in a very defined pipeline. But sometimes, like I said, it's good to stir that up a bit. And this hopefully could help some of you guys, especially during this Christmas break, to experiment a bit, open up your Photoshop and give this a try. Now, let's go into how this is actually done. So I'm starting out with very small thumbnails. These are about 400, 500 pixels wide, just clip art essentially, very low res, and just taking a bunch of them. You see me at this point, I've probably put in about maybe 30 or 40 thumbnails by now, and just collaging and just trying all sorts of random patterns, not really have a plan in my head of the result I'm gonna get, because that's the whole point, is that I want the mistakes, I want the chaos that's being created by all these images mixing together and creating contrast, shapes, colors, patterns, forms, the depth of field. These are all kind of coming together a little bit chaotically, a little bit of a gut feeling of where things should go. And when I have enough of that, when I think that, okay, of these thumbnails, that's enough for me to get started, then I'll start painting on top. Now, what you see here are 12, I think, right? 12 thumbnails. Do I have to use them all? Of course not. The whole point here is to generate ideas, and you don't need 12 of them to be pitched. But this method, the reason why we have so many is that it gives you variations, right? If our whole goal was to get to just one painting and we just start with one of these, well, you could be twirling your thumb for a while and not getting anywhere. With so many things on the page right now, I could see like, okay, how about the top right, second down, that looks pretty cool. The forest one, the one below that with the waterfall, that looks pretty cool. And some other ones don't quite interest me, and that's totally fine. In this business, making mistakes is completely fine, especially in the design phase of things, that you don't have to be always being perfect or doing things with fundamentals and perspectives and vanishing points and all these things that sometimes slow you down. Instead, just go crazy a little bit. Just let your imagination completely go out there, free up your thought, and sometimes be surprised the kind of results you might get that normally you might not have gotten if you follow the traditional methods. Let's see, what else should I talk about here? But there is a goal here. I'm not creating landscapes that are completely random in terms of the design goal. In my head, I'm designing some landscapes that could fit into probably a fantasy game of some sort. So I'm not doing sci-fi, and I'm not doing interiors. If you guys find this interesting, I might do an episode in which we follow up with, say, a complete different theme, say sci-fi, or even real world, which becomes a little bit trickier. And I'll talk about that in a second here. But this works extremely well for blue sky designs, things that has a little bit bigger scale, for example, landscapes, things that requires different forms, such as, again, landscapes or sci-fi environments. These forms are generally not found in your current day life. This method, however, does not work well if you're doing things that are, for example, real world designs, like a CEO's office, like a James Bond villain's lair, or a kid's bedroom. Those cases, you probably want to start with some line drawing or some good references to start with. This kind of chaotic method, I think, in my opinion, in most cases, does not lend to those type of design challenges. This, again, works well when you're dealing with open-ended blue sky concept for things that are pretty big in scale. Of course, this also works for creatures, and maybe we'll get to that in a bit. Characters and creatures, we'll do that in another episode. But let's just start with environments. I think that's the easiest one to do because it gives you a very wide spectrum of mistake making. You don't have to be perfect with it. The more zoomed in you are to a subject matter, like a character or a vehicle or a prop, the more difficult it is because you have to define things at a human scale. With environments, you are way zoomed out. A little dot on the page could be a rock. It could be a guy's head. You don't have to be that detailed in trying to get your ideas across. So yeah, we'll get to that later. We'll get to some of the maybe character interiors and these type of things in another episode. So to try this out, what I did here is I started with a pretty big resolution image. I think this is about, 5,000 across, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, and divided it with a black, well, just filled that in on a new layer with a black canvas, and took the lasso tool and just cut out these 12 holes. And the black layer now becomes a frame, essentially, that's sitting on top of your blank layer. And then just insert these images underneath the frame and just do what I'm doing here, is creating chaos. And at this point in real time, I spent about 20 minutes or so creating these chaos. And that's fairly fast in terms of creation. And I think in the past, I've mentioned that creativity, at least for myself, hold on one second, let me take a sip of water. I have a bit of a cold. All right, so where was I? Okay, in the past, I've mentioned that in terms of for myself, creativity, the part in which you're just thinking of ideas, doesn't last that long. For me, that's about maybe, sorry, I got one more water here. Right, it lasts about maybe 2 hours before my brain sort of just completely gives up and just gets fried. But I could paint all day, but the creativity part for me, 2 hours. So I want to get these thumbnails out as quickly as possible, and then get my brain to start getting the ideas out. The painting part, I could spend all day, all week painting. So I want to concentrate the first few hours of my time, especially in the creative zone, to make things. So now I've decided after 20 minutes or so, okay, let's start painting. I see enough of ideas on the page for me to get started with the execution. So here I am painting some towers on a waterfall. I started with this one because I thought a color palette just came out really beautiful. You have this nice red, warm earth tone coming from the ground, and then you have this nice sunset, you have some waterfalls. And again, this is completely been born out of chaos. This is something I would not have painted, or maybe I have, but in terms of just starting from scratch of painting, these are things that I have no idea what the results would be before I started this exercise. And that's great for certain projects. And this is a method I use on even recently on a project because the clients wanted, in this case, say, without giving away the project, they needed landscapes that are a little bit in the dark fantasy realms that is not your traditional approach to RPG, right? There's a little bit of something else thrown in there, a little bit of technology that's not your normal RPG. So they're looking for landscapes that are reminiscent of castles and your great towers and things like that, but with a little bit of twist thrown in. And using this method was great because otherwise I'll probably just be painting landscape with castles on it and try to fit my variations within that. By using this method, I'm able to create solutions right off the bat that allow my brain and my eyes to conceive a different approach to a simple or a solution that's been done before. And that relatively seems simple, like a castle on a rock, but this chaos creates another layer of forms that I might not have done. So you guys are trying this, especially in the beginning, the first, say, half an hour, maybe an hour. Don't worry too much about the fundamentals. It's important to stress that, for our students here as well, because sometimes, especially for our school, we focus a lot on making sure your perspective is good, make sure your horizon lines are correct, making sure that your vanishing points are right, your camera position is correct. But sometimes students get so attached to making sure that the fundamentals are correct that their designs take a back seat, that they're worried about, okay, make sure this is drawn perfectly. So everything ends up being a box, or everything ends up being very, very stiff, and the idea is pretty much completely disappears. And then later you see some students kind of like on projects in which, okay, you can draw whatever you want. And all of a sudden they release all these great ideas and great designs, like, whoa, where did this come from? And then they reveal, like, well, this one's just side view or something like that. Well, I don't have to worry about fundamentals. And then your brain, they're doing these fantastic designs. You're like, that's what we want. Fundamentals always take a back seat. The ideas, the designs, the forms, that comes first. Once you have that, you can always use fundamentals to clean things up, right? And that goes for characters, it goes for props, it goes for environments, is that you want to capture your idea first. And this video hopefully is showing you a very pure way of getting to that, which is like, I did not put any grids down, there are no horizon lines, there's nothing. It's just pure creativity and chaos. And now, as I draw these thumbnails in, there are a little bit of fundamentals in play, but still not that much. I have probably a basic horizon line established, but I'm not focusing too much on, okay, let me make sure this is coming from a VP line from the left and a VP line from the right. This is a one-point perspective. Not that important, especially in these early phase idea generation type of things. And I need to mention this also, which is like these top thumbnails. A lot of these, the clients or even the art director might never see. This is an internal process you guys are witnessing here. This is for you, the designer, to get ideas out on paper, right? Again, going back to the ideas being stagnant, or you're getting into a creative rut in which you're not designing anything. This is for you to free up your imagination, get yourself going again, get yourself motivated to design. And when you're doing this, you don't have to be like, oh, this has to be seen to the public. Even when I was doing this, I know it's for design cinema, but in the back of my head, it was like, whatever goes, goes. I'm not going to stress about like the quality is going to has to be perfect because I have to show this to people. You don't have to. The goal here of these 12 thumbnails, you might actually only extract 3, right? Maybe even 2, maybe even 1, for all I care. That's for yourself to decide. If you want to extract 5 or all 12, go ahead. If you want to extract just 1, go ahead, because that one painting that you got out could be worth a lot in terms of pitching that to a client. That could be the idea to go for. So starting with a high number to arrive at a low number is sort of the goal. And don't worry that you have to abandon 11 others or 10 other paintings to get to that. That is what design or the pipeline that we have in this business is. That majority of the stuff you do, a lot of it gets thrown away. And you have to go into this business with that mentality. If you go into this business knowing that everything I paint, everything I draw has to be appreciated by the client and everything has to be approved, you're not going to make in this business. I think in all the work I've done, in the thousands, it's got to be in the thousands of paintings and drawings I've done at this point, I'm guessing about 70% of it never made it. It's not because the design is bad, well, some of it probably is. It's because the creative process is an evolutionary process with the clients. So you show them this, you go on to the next round. You show them that, you go on to the next round. So as you do that, many paintings and designs are getting morphed and getting evolved, or some just completely gets killed. Doesn't make it past stage 1, so make it to stage 3, and they get resolved. So or get thrown out. So this is part of our business. That this is a business of idea generation, and ideas must morph, must evolve, must get better. So what we're doing here is generating a lot for yourself. This is stage 1. Of that, you're giving birth to 1 or 2 ideas. You finish those paintings up, you put down the wall, you do this process again, you generate another 2 or 3 sets, you put that on the wall. So by the end of the week, you have 7, 8 paintings, but to get to those 7 to 8 paintings, you have generated, say, 40 of these paintings to do so. And these 40 paintings, nobody might see. You know what I'm saying? This business is not about showing off your work and showing off your artwork and getting your art director to be like all impressed with how many paintings you do. No, our job here is to design, to get to that idea, to get to that thing that's going to spark the imagination of the creative team and commit to these designs as assets, right? In the pipeline of making movies and games. Once you do this art, that's not finished. This is step 1 of 1,000 steps that it takes to bring this thing to life. So if you work on a video game, RPG, or something like that, you're doing the initial idea of, say, the little mushrooms on the waterfall, right? That's kind of cool looking. Say that gets approved. Now you got to do another 5 paintings to refine that. And probably after that, another 5 paintings to define it and once more. And after all that's done, you have to go into do production drawings and line drawings and turnarounds and worth those so the 3D modelers could build all those. And then you got to do color keys, mood paths, daytime, night cycles. What does it look like in fog? What does it look like in rain? And those things are all required. And so right now, what you guys are looking at is stage 1. Probably essentially one of the most important stages because you're defining the bigger picture. And that's why we are doing so many of these, and that's why I'm not focusing on details, and I'm also not focusing too much on the fundamentals. This is all about ideas. This is all about getting your imagination sparked, and if you focus too much on details at this point, you are spending the time in the wrong place. Again, for this type of creation, right? We have videos in which details are important. Things that you pitch to clients, things are going up on the wall. Those things you want to zoom in and start painting. So this one you see, I'm not even zooming in on anything. These thumbnails are about, if there's 5,000 across, we're talking about what, 1,500, right? 1,700 wide. Pretty small little paintings. And I'm just working 1-to-1 here. I mean, working at 25%, I think, zoom out in Photoshop, and never really zooming in. Because details like grass, little mushrooms, little windows and stuff, doesn't matter at this point. It's just about the forms and getting as many ideas as I can. All right, so I'm painting away. You can see, again, I'm going to an RPG sort of a landscape here. So you're seeing no sci-fi things, no crazy spaceships flying around. And this one's going to be a shipwreck that you're looking at here. And some of these I like, some of them I don't really care for. But I'm still going to try to put them out because sometimes if you stop halfway on a painting, like something you think might not work, you'd be surprised by working on it. It could result in something that's good, especially in these thumbnail stage. If this is a final painting, I don't feel it, I generally stop it because it's going to take hours before you get that thing defined. But in the thumbnail stage, you're talking about 10-15 minutes per thumbnail that I'm spending time on. That if I want to kind of revisit a idea I don't like, within another 10 minutes, I could morph that into something else. So I'm kind of working all these paintings at the same time. I'm not exactly giving up on one of them or killing them off or deleting it. I'm just going to leave it there and see what it gets me. All right, so I'm going to continue working. And you can see I'm going back and forth between different things because the shipwreck, you saw, I worked on that for a little bit and abandoned it because I think I got it. I got the forms that's going to go in. I like the direction. So it's like, okay, let's go and work on this forest one. And here I'm starting to, and getting all the details and forms in. If I like something, I start painting it too, getting it more defined than even the ones next to it. So here I'm working on the treehouse village or whatever this looks like, which kind of looks cool. You know, I like the lighting, I like the way it feels. The forms in here looks pretty good. So I start to find that. Now let's go back to the thing I mentioned earlier about getting out of your design comfort zone. when a client hires you, they are going for a certain language that you as a designer speaks, right? Different designers have different forms they like to use, and clients go for that. They're not going to hire you and go, hey, we really like, say, Frank Frazetta or something, and you have like nothing in your portfolio that's Frank Frazetta, and they'll tell you, hey, you have nothing in your portfolio that looks like Frank Frazetta, but I need you to paint stuff like Frank Frazetta. That generally doesn't happen. Well, if you paint like Frank Frazetta or something that kind of reminiscent of that style or design language or whatever, be, or say you're really good at 1970s styling, most likely the clients are going for that thing when they hire you. They're not going to get a guy who's very, very good at designing retro stuff and tell you to do a RPG fantasy game. It's rare. It generally doesn't happen. Clients go for guys who are producing things they already want to see. So when you look at this chaos, it's like, okay, Fang, you just mentioned that you want to do things different. But what this difference is not 100% difference. What it is shakes up your creative path. The forms, the language develop, still going to retain. So if you get a guy, say one of you is really good at creating, let's say, very traditional looking RPG landscapes, your castles and villages. But you tend to find that everything you do lands in the same type of world. The mountain's always the same kind of mountain. The grass fields always the same grass. But your mountain, your details in terms of your trees, your villages design, they look the same. But that we want to keep. What we want to do is we want to change up the forms that those subjects or those design forms lands on. And that's what this method is for. So I'm not forcing myself to get away from my design languages, right? I like certain forms, like these mushroom forms, some of these kind of spiky things. I like those forms. So those things I'm not exactly choosing to get rid of. I'm just stacking that on top of the more interesting background or the interesting noise that the original creative process gave me. So hopefully that makes sense to you, right? Because we don't want to completely reset you as a designer. Is that all the skills, all the languages you built, all the visual library you had in the previous years that you've done, we want that encased in these thumbnails. It's just that we want these thumbnails to give you a different path, a different solution. This method doesn't work for everybody. We teach this here at the school as well. Some students will come back with fantastic new original ideas or something that breaks them out of the comfort zone, and for some we literally just get chaos and there's no organization no matter what. Because for some people, you need the organization to start. They need the line drawing. They need the initial thumbnails to make sense, these type of things. So again, I think this works well for probably guys with a little bit more industry experience. They could see the forms within it. For students, again, I can't say that because we have students here who use this method and generate some amazing stuff. So you guys have to basically try it out to see if this is something you like or not. I find it to be extremely useful, but in terms of everyday use, it only applies for certain projects. So if like for example, the Call of Duty stuff we're doing for the Advanced Warfare, I couldn't use this method because everything was like it takes place in South Korea or it takes place in this so and so city. This really wouldn't help me. In fact, it will kind of take me backwards because if I generate this, it looks nothing like South Korea. So we actually have to start with references of the cities themselves and draw those out and then paint our designs on top of existing locations. So this method wasn't applied. But again, for the RPG game that I was mentioning earlier that I worked on, it was perfect. I mean, it generated so many ideas within the first day because the project just lent itself to this type of creation. So all right, so here I'm just continuing refining. Here comes a warb spherical in the forest, all being hung by kind of these spider webby looking structures, but they're made out of maybe twines or wood. So let me talk about the why being so busy, why there's such a delay. It's because we're kind of re-ramping the school. We've been around for now about 5 years. Again, I don't want to do too much marketing, but just a kind of reason why there's such a delay is because we are moving to a new location next year, and hopefully when this video goes up, there'll be some images of our new facilities as well on probably my Facebook and maybe our school's website. You guys could go and take a look. This is December 24th, so this video will make no sense, I think, if you're watching it beyond that. But anyways, we are going to a much bigger facilities. We're going from a 8,000 square foot current location to something that's 18,000 square foot. So huge space. And so we've been working with architects and interior designers and get the color palettes right, really making the environment feel like a design center. So our students could be very comfortable being here for a whole year and just working hard and just providing the space that allows them to be creative and give them the tools and the workspace for all that to happen. So yeah, that's what I've been spending most of my time on. working quite hard. So that's out of the way, I hope. So it's moving on to the next stage. I'm not that required anymore. And two, we've been trying to plan Design Cinema to be a much more prolonged series, something a little bit more, professional. Right now, this is pretty much done by me and just a few people, but we want to ramp this up to a much more professional series. And that's where I ask you guys for help as well. We're looking for video editors, guys who are very savvy at putting cool graphics and videos. If you guys are interested, send us a contact at fcdschool.com. That's the email, contact at fcdschool.com, or maybe just leave your trailer or leave some kind of reel in the comment section, because we'd love to hire a few of you guys, bring you guys out to Singapore and work with us to basically build this series into a much more informative and more professionally produced thing, right? Because right now it's overall pretty amateurish. I think we're doing some pretty fun stuff. We have some nice content, but we definitely want to ramp this up to be more pro. So yeah, if you guys are interested in working with us, let us know, or let me know as well. Just email us and we'll definitely take a look at your work. So anyways, that's been the long delay. That's what hasn't been an episode, but that's something we're trying to fix for next year. We want to make these a bi-weekly episode, which I mentioned so many times, but that's always been my goal with Design Cinema, because they are fun to make. It's just that when you don't have enough people working on these things, because at the end of the day we are a physical school, and those things requires a lot of time. Doing things like editing videos and uploading, all that kind of stuff eats too much into our time, so we just don't have the manpower to produce these, and that's something we're trying to fix. So all right, anyways, enough marketing about the school. Let's go back to the video. So now I'm still painting details. There's nothing, not details, painting the bigger picture, getting the forms out. And for each of these, you can see some of these I worked on a little bit, some of them I worked less, because some of them I already know is not going to work out. Like, I don't really like it. Even by putting some of the bigger forms I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like generic and not that interesting. So I'm spending my time on the 3 or 4 that I find quite cool. These are ones if I'm working in the studio, these are the 4 or 5 I'll be extracting for cleanup. Right? Again, I mentioned earlier, these are not to be shown to clients. You can, if you have a very good reputation. Right now, let's talk about freelancers. For freelancers, if you have a very good reputation with the clients, like you have a long established working relationship, these kind of comps are generally showable. But if you're starting out, my advice, don't show things that are too rough, because the clients might get freaked out and go, what the heck what am I looking at, right? And also, you're giving them too many things. 12 little comps, that's too much stuff. This is something that's done internally. So for a freelancer, this is for you to find the 3 or 4 you're going to pitch to your clients, right? Use this method to generate, this took me in real time to get to where at the end of the video, what those look like. It took me about, I think, 3.5 hours, somewhere around there in real time. So in a day, I could essentially generate 24 of these rough ones and clean them all up in one day. So that's 24 ideas. And what I'll do the next day is I'll extract probably 5 to 6 of those 24 and bring those to a presentable finish. Still not refined in terms of a production painting, but enough to now be showable to clients. And those are the ones we actually show at the end of the week to whomever we're working with. Now, if you're in-house full-time, then this is something you could definitely show to art directors, because art director to art director is still not the full pitch. Generally, art or designs are being in the pitching stage are going in front of exec producers, your creative art directors, your all sorts of people that are involved in the decision making. So you and your art directors, this is not the decision making time yet. The art director will make some artistic design decisions, but they actually like to see all these ideas on paper. Even at this stage, even what you see on screen right now, this is really showable. If you have a very close or understandable working relationship with the art directors, this is definitely something that's showable. And what he'll do is probably he'll insert their ideas of, okay, let's go for these 5, clean those up, delete the rest. It depends on your working relationship and how the pipeline works. But yeah, in general, things this rough are not really showable, especially on the film side of things. You want to clean these up. And video games, even if you're freelancing, they generally want to see things are pretty refined. So right now, that's why I'm making a decision to take about 5 of these and start bringing them to something I like, and kind of abandon the rest a little bit, at least work on them a little bit later, because this is a real project. This is for a client. Some of those 3 or 4 I won't work on at this point. I'm only kind of finishing up a little bit for you guys, so you guys can see a nicer presentation, I guess, at the end of the video, that all 12 are brought up to a certain stage. So, but yeah, in the real world, 5 or 6 gets picked, the rest gets abandoned. We'll start another batch of 12, 5 or 6 gets picked from that, the rest gets abandoned, and repeat until you refine yourself down to the final 3 or 4 or maybe 5, and that's the ones you pitched at the end of the week. So all right, so it's still a pipeline, but the goal of this is just to get you guys to see different ways to approach solutions, the different ways to approach ideas. That sometimes the best way to learn is through mistakes, is through making errors and accidents, right? I mean, you look at the other industries, some of the best inventions in the world, even food or utilities, they came from mistakes, from chaos, from doing things not intended, and they actually end up with some of the best things. And it works the same way with design, right? So let's see. I cover some other technical stuff. There's my dog barking. So it's a very small skeletal crew here. Again, December 24th. It is noon right now, so we've got like 4 people in the office, so everybody's kind of messing around. So the dog is very antsy as well because nobody's around. Quite worried. All right, so anyways, back to the painting. So this one, now I'm starting to show you a little bit of a cleanup phase. This is still cleanup for internal use. This is for yourself, but clean it up enough that, okay, I get it. This is the scale. This is architecture, this is landscape, this is rocks, right? Kind of getting that stuff in so it's not so suggestive anymore. So that way, at the end of 2-3 days, I might have, 12, something like 24 or 36 of these by the end of 2 days. That by looking back, I also remind myself which ones are the ones I want to use. It might sound weird that you forget, but really in a very busy time zone or time kind of pipeline, you might be working on 3-4 projects at once. I mean, the height of my freelance career, I was definitely doing 3-4 projects at once. And sometimes you even forget which of the ones you chose. So what I do is I finish some of these to a little bit higher level. So I could come back to these a day later and go, oh yeah, that's the one I liked, or that's the one I was working on. So it saves you about really a half a second, because you can figure it out anyways, by looking at your paint and go, okay, that's what I'm working on. But half a second, 2 seconds, that's still time that sparks that creativity. Doesn't slow you down. And I guess that makes more sense in terms of, it's not time saving. It is when you're in a creative zone. For myself at least, I don't want things to break that zone. So if I'm in the mood to paint, I'll come back say tomorrow and I'm like, okay, let's do this, let's paint these and finish these things up. And I sit down and go, oh, where was I? And your brain, you have this brain fart basically, like, and you're like, whoa, what was I thinking? Even though like 5 seconds ago you're thinking about, let's do this, let's paint, let's get materials, let's paint all this cool stuff. And then you have that slight pause. And for me, that slight pause could throw you off. You're like, oh man, it's like, what was I thinking just 5 seconds ago? You tend to forget. Same thing happens when someone calls for a meeting, So that's why when I'm working, I generally close my office doors. And my staff knows that. They're like, okay, Faye's, doing a project. Because if I'm in the middle of a zone and someone asks you some question that's completely unrelated to what I'm doing, it could throw you off. It just goes back to different individuals, I guess. For me, I like to concentrate big time when I'm working. I don't go on the internet. I don't look at Twitter, Facebook, or nothing. I don't have anything. I pretty much have a movie playing in the background, but with no audio. It's just like zero audio. I might have a soundtrack or something. But when I'm working, again, in the design phase, okay, because in the past I tell you guys I like to have chaos when I work. That's true. But in the design phase, I concentrate. Completely in the idea itself. But once this stage is done, you can have all the noise you want, you can ask me all the questions I want, because it goes down to technical stuff. And technical stuff, once you have enough experience in this business, is not the hardest thing to do. That's just detail, fundamentals, cleaning things up. You don't need a lot of, I guess, the brain part of you to operate. You just need the muscle power to operate. So this phase right now, this is all brain power here. It's deciding, you're making decisions that essentially affects the entire painting down the road, right? Where I put this architecture, where I put the tree, most likely it's going to stay there for until you finish this painting. So these decisions are quite vital. Your compositions, your key lighting, your mood, your atmosphere, these are all being decided right now on this little tiny painting you see here. So here's I'm just concentrating, right? So yeah, well, I guess it depends on the project as well. The white noise thing. Sometimes I do work on projects in which I want a lot of randomness around me, but generally not things that are outside the scope of the project. So guys asking me administrative questions about the school, that is not in the scope of my painting. But if it's something like a movie playing with a music video in the background, that stuff is still in the realms of creativity. So that doesn't really mess me up a bit. So you guys have to define it. Some of my friends, they have to work in complete dead silence in this type of thing. Even when they're doing the cleanup and stuff, they don't want noise. And you got guys out there who doesn't mind a crazy noisy art department. So, but it's generally a good idea to get used to both, because if you guys are working in-house somewhere, you could be in a studio that's very, very noisy. You could also be in a studio that's so quiet you can hear a pin drop. So it just depends on where you are working at. Or sometimes they stick you in the office by yourself. It's up to you to create the kind of environment you're on. So, all right, technicality wise, let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about. Pretty simple. There's no layers going on here. I'm painting with at most one layer. That all goes back to the creating chaos thing, creating mistakes, and allowing yourself that comfort zone of it's okay to make mistakes, right? I find that if you make a lot of layers, you are already restricting yourself to a set of rules. You're already saying like, oh, I'm gonna be very careful here. I'm gonna create 5 layers. Every time I start painting or start a line stroke, I'm gonna start another layer. Well, you're putting yourself at a defensive mode, in my opinion. You're already saying, oh, layers are there because it prevents me from making mistakes. It prevents me from trying things, or it helps me try things without worrying about it because I can always delete the layer, right? So that's good. It's good for certain things. But for me, in these early phases, like no layers sometimes adds even more randomness or even more mistakes into your paintings that you have to remove by hand and not by doing things like delete the layer. So that just adds to the whole creativity process of like, just go for it. If you have an idea, just go for it. Don't worry about having this very rigid production pipeline to go in it. So yeah, this probably contradicts some other videos. This video is very different, right? This is not the line drawing stuff or the kind of production painting stuff I've done in the past. This is a different way to create things. So some of the stuff I'm saying might contradict some of the stuff in another painting, and that's completely true. It just depends on the method you're using, right? If we're doing a line drawing, a perfect perspective drawing of a castle, for example, in which you have to bust out your rulers and get your vanishing points, some of the stuff I'm saying makes absolutely no sense for that kind of project. You don't want to draw things out of perspective when you're after a perspective drawing. But in this case, yeah, it's completely valid for having no layers. Just draw whatever you want, create a little bit of chaos, make those mistakes, let your mind go free, and just create. Okay, so all right, I'm getting a little bit repetitive here. Let's see what else we could talk about here. Let's go back to the whole design cinema thing in terms of creating this into a series. So the plan here is to make these a little bit more bi-weekly. We have more themes. So because a lot of you guys have asked for a online version of our school, for example, that's something we're still experimenting with. It's tricky to do that because if you think about it this way, our students are here entire year. They're working pretty much 7 days a week, and it still takes a very long time for them to get good because discipline is the major thing here. Watching a video, you could watch every episode on Design Cinema over and over again, but unless you're actually doing the work, doing the homework, it's not going to help you much. I mentioned this before. You could watch an NBA player dribble, watch Kobe Bryant dribble basketball all day, but if you never pick up the ball and go on the field and actually play some games, you're not going to be good at basketball. Just no way. I don't think anyone could watch basketball and never play and suddenly pick up the ball for the first time and become just as good as Kobe Bryant. It doesn't work. You have to put in the hundreds and thousands of hours of practice for this to work. So an online school, in a way in which we're actually charging tuition, we got to make sure the results are good, because I don't want to start an online thing and we put a bunch of videos and you guys are paying tuition for it and then there's no results. That is not going to be cool. That's not the result I want. I want to make sure that if you're actually in a program, you're actually getting tangible results. And we cannot charge people money for things in which they're just getting nothing out of, right? So our full-time program, we see results. We see students come in, day one drawing pretty crappy, and by the end of the year, some of these guys turn to full-on professionals. And that's something we're very proud of, right? That's the achievement I want to get if you are enrolled yourself into a program. So until we figure out how the online process works to get tangible results, we're going to just continue offering, Design Cinema and online, they're separate things, right? Design Cinema is something that we're going to continue to offer for free. Don't worry, we're never going to charge for these things. We're never going to put these membership or nothing on it. It's going to continue to be free. But we do want it to become a resource for those who might not be able to come to our school, or even if there's an online program, don't want to enroll in that, you still have this resource available. And we want to make that a lot more polished, a lot more professional, a lot more organized in terms of episodes or themes, things that could perhaps be on a website of its own. These are all things we're currently working on, and hopefully sometime next year we'll get all this stuff up and running. Other things I should mention since it's the end of the year. Oh, by the way, Merry Christmas to those who are celebrating. And if you're not, Happy Holidays. Take the Happy New Year's coming up as well. But next year, March, I will be at GDC San Francisco, We have a pretty big booth there. I think we should have a couple of alumni there helping out as well with their portfolios and help you answer questions. So if you are interested, go ahead and stop by and say hi to our admin staff and our past students, our graduates. I'll be there as well. So I don't know the exact dates, but you guys could look it up. GDC San Francisco, that's the main one that they host. So we'll be there with a really big booth. And keep an eye out again for the school images. We're going to show some of the renderings from our architects and interior designers. That should be going up. By the time this video is up, it should be up. And it should be on my blog or my Facebook. I'm not sure. I have no idea what's going to go, but it should be up. So, and take a look and to see why we've been neglecting you guys on the video side. So next year, I'm still going to be pretty busy, but if we make this series where if we have even people like you guys maybe out there that can work with us, will hopefully make this a lot more stable as a series, because we find that design cinema does influence so many people. We get almost every day we get emails from people writing and thanking us for these series, and we're like, man, we got to do more. This series is changing people's lives. It's affecting young artists out there. We got parents who have kids who are 12 years old, 11 years old. Just yesterday, a parent with a 13-year-old say that they love design cinema and want to know how to get into this business. So we're reaching kids that are very, very young, and for me that's a very rewarding thing. It's like, man, these we're opening the eyes to these kids who like drawing that perhaps without these videos they might not have an interest, where their skills might be directed somewhere else. And sometimes it's like, hey, if they like to draw, let's give them a outlet to do that. So we definitely want to make this series a little bit more approachable and more accessible to a lot of people, and definitely a lot more professional in terms of the way they're produced, edited, and throwing fun stuff for the fans, where students are learning. You guys have questions. We might have a lot of ways to interact with you guys and make it a lot more a valuable resource for everyone who's interested in conceptual design for the entertainment industry. So, and that's what we'll work on. So I'm blabbering about other things because this episode is kind of repetitive. As you can see, it's 12 of these repeated one after another. There's no layers, there's no special things going involved. It's just paint, getting the ideas out, and so that's why I'm kind of babbling around here. But this one, you can see the waterfall. I kind of like this one, right? And this is something that I think on my own I'll never have drawn. It's born out of the chaos that's created. The color palettes, the way the waterfall even works, the way the structures are kind of built on the rocks and kind of mushroom themselves in and out. These are all born completely out of the chaos, right? Although it does remind me a little bit of the Star Wars stuff from Doug, from episode 1, Phantom Menace. Remember that? He did this really cool, now that I look at it, it's like, hey, it reminds me of that one. It's like he's got this mushroom thing. I think the waterfall is like a ring around it. It was quite cool, but I gotta chalk that up to coincidence, or maybe some far away brain stored that image, but yeah, a little bit of that. But this one's more village. I think this is being flushed out. I'll turn those into more of a, I don't know what kind of material. I don't think metal makes sense without this water around. Maybe something that doesn't rust. Maybe it is rusted. It's kind of cool. But maybe wood will work okay, I think, in this kind of wet environment. Some kind of thatched roof, some kind of tiled bark material, perhaps. Maybe wood bark could be the material for the roofs. The bridge themselves, probably wood will make the most sense. It does allow expansion and contraction with the water. Could get some molding issues. But these are things we consider later as we start getting the materials on top of it, to see how we actually make this make sense in a entertainment way, right? So game players and movie watchers don't like call it out, go, it makes no sense to build that there and stuff like that. So, but end of the day, it's entertainment. Nothing really makes sense if you break everything down. Star Wars, Star Trek, and all these things, they're awesome, but if you actually break down the designs, a lot of it in a way is there for entertainment, right? For example, spaceships doesn't have to be aerodynamic. You don't need to have a front or a back even for a spaceship. So these are things made for entertainment purposes. So having a city built on a waterfall, probably not the most efficient, probably very dangerous. And imagine trying to build this in the construction phase. A lot of people probably die by falling over and drowning themselves. Not the most efficient way is to put a city. You probably want to build on the shore, which is like a few meters away from here. Why not build it there? So these are things to create cool. It's for the audience to look at this and go, wow, that was pretty awesome, and have a memorable experience. So part of it makes sense, other parts don't have to. So all right, so here I'm showing the kind of, instead of boring you guys with me finishing all 12 of these in a row, here's what it looks like about 3 hours. I think about 2.5 hours later. I kind of cleaned these up just a tiny bit. They're not flushed out, But you can see I changed the shipwreck from a wintering scene to more of a hot jungle type of environment. So now I'm taking this middle one here, the one I'm working on here with the waterfalls falling. There seems to be a lot of waterfalls going on here. But anyways, with the waterfalls falling, using that to show you guys how I clean these up, which isn't really nothing to it. It's just time. It's just going there, getting your secondary forms out, secondary details out, and flush it out to a point where you understand it and the art director understands it. That's about it. Can a client understand this at this point? Tough call. Depends on who they are. If they're art savvy, yes. But if it's a bunch of non-artist types looking at this stuff, like your financial guys and your CEO types and stuff, some of them might not be entirely art driven or design driven, and this will be too early to show. You want to flush these out a little bit more, like give it some scale, put some people in there, put some human relatable content in there, like barrels or lamps and things are that human interact with. You need to throw a little bit of I guess everyday life type of stuff into these before you show it to someone who say is executive, who don't generally look at concept art. So this is the level that's just showable to designer or artist to artist, not artist to exec. So that's something that you're gonna have to spend more time on before you show. So again, that's different. Everything has a big range on it. It's not definite. It just depends on where you work at. You got a lot of executives out there who are artists themselves, or game developers or programmers before they became executive, and they could totally understand this stuff. But there's other studios who don't. You got executives who comes from banking or something. They have never worked with artists and stuff like that. And so you pitch something that's a little bit rough, it might be hard for them to understand. So it just depends on the studio you're at. Everything's different. Everybody operates different kind of pipelines, so you just have to fill it out who you're working with. So all right, continue to paint, working this stuff in. When this video is done, I'll have this video or this image available on my blog. For those who don't know, it's fengzuidesign.blogspot.com, and it'll also be on my Facebook as well, so you could grab this image. I'll also give you the image without the black border, which I find to look pretty cool when the border itself is actually not there. So yeah, you guys could grab that. I'll give you guys this in a pretty high resolution, probably somewhere in the 3,000, 4,000 range. Grab it, take a look at it, paint on top of it, mess it up, use this as a base to study. Do whatever you want. These are things that if you're learning, I really don't care how you use these images I provide you guys. You don't have to ask permission, because we do get people asking like, hey, is it okay if I model your stuff in 3D or take some of these and paint on top of it to practice? Go ahead. It's all for you guys. I don't care what you do with these things, and you don't have to get my permission. It's all fine. So these are done for educational purposes, and these are things that's free on the internet, on YouTube. So yeah, you guys could feel free to do whatever you want with it. So all right, this is getting close to wrapping up in terms of just polishing. Right now this is being sped up still. In about 3 minutes or so, I'm gonna cut away into the real-time version, in which I kind of pan around to kind of show you each of these a little bit more punched in. All right, so this is episode 78. So 79 and 80 will probably finish up this series of thumbnails, right? They started with a whole spaceship thumbnail, then we got to the dragon thumbnails, and now we're doing a painting thumbnail. I should do a character thumbnail. That's something I'll probably do for 79. After characters, we might do maybe trying to think, maybe interior or something, maybe something that's more sci-fi, I'm not sure. And then we'll wrap this series up in terms of thumbnail. And I want to get back to a little bit more the Let's Draws with the video game stuff. So again, leave us comments, which one do you guys prefer. Again, these are things we're looking at very seriously now in terms of the school itself, of how to make these cater to you guys. So all the comments you guys are getting, we're putting it all together and deciding the direction we're going to take design cinema in terms of what do we do, more let's plays, or do we do more just random things that I come up with, where something like it's a majority thing where a lot of people are asking for a certain thing, then we'll cater to that. So these are all things. So the more comments you leave or feedback, the more we could tally that type of information and provide it for you guys. All right. So this one's cleaned up. This one I don't like. This one I'm doing. I really like the round one next to it, to the left of it, the little ball thing without the kind of jungle tentacle. I think that has a lot of potential for a village with maybe some creatures living in there, little goblins or something. I don't know. It seems like a little fun world. This one kind of boring. It looks like a house on a cliff or something. But that's the whole point, is that of these 12 images, a lot of these might not get used. In fact, all 12 could be thrown away. It doesn't mean that you wasted time. It doesn't mean you made mistakes and you should get all depressed. The whole creative process is about this evolution, that by destroying 12 paintings, like say none of these go into, maybe my 13th painting is the one that, because I've done these 12 it sparked the imagination for the 13th. And that could be the one that makes into the game, that makes into a video game or into a film. And that's the one that's going to go down and make all the fans happy and all the game birds go, that's awesome, right? So that's the process. Don't get yourself worked up if you spend all time working on something, even a painting doesn't come out good. Don't get depressed. That is one of the biggest killers of this business, which is morale, right? We've seen it happen with so many of our students here, in which they have a bad week or they're doing design well and they go into this low slump of bad morale. And it's like, dude, come on, dude. First of all, okay, let's just back up. This is a fun industry you guys are working on. Even if you're not in school, you're just doing this on your own. Think about what you're doing. You know, a lot of people wish they could be inside a home in front of a computer and just making up landscapes for something. And if you're a professional or someone who's studying the school, your homework is to draw aliens and landscapes and sci-fi things. It never is going to get that back. Okay, so morale-wise, look what you are doing. You're doing something really, really fun. So you should never get demoralized. Two, which gets to the point of these kind of things, is that if you create a bunch of stuff that doesn't come out well, or you make mistakes doing it, and you spend 7 hours painting, say, these 12 paintings, and you don't like any of them, that is not a bad thing, right? The process to get to the final result is paved by mistakes, and is paved by accidents, is paved by things that are thrown away. That's all part of the process. You cannot approach this industry like every piece I do must be perfect. Everything I paint must add value. No, it does not. You know, you can paint 100 paintings and throw them away, and don't worry about it. That 101 painting is going to be the one that maybe you get really, really happy about, right? So in fact, you know, I don't care at all. When I paint these kind of things, I never consider, oh, the client's not going to pick it, so I'm going to get all pissed off. If they pick none, who cares? And if you're doing your own paintings and some don't come out, who cares, right? You have fun doing it. You learn a bunch of things by going through the process, and that is very vital, especially for you guys who are students out there, is to keep your morale high, because what you're doing is fun, and every paint stroke, every line you put on paper is helping you to get better. So don't compare your work to others, or don't even get yourself in a mode where you look at your work and go, oh man, I suck, and this guy is much better than me, you know, why am I even doing this? Just keep at it. Don't ever let your morale drop. Morale seriously is a huge killer in this business. So we've seen students are even quite good get shut down because of bad morale. You know, they get all depressed over this, and I keep telling them, it's like, why get depressed? This business is such a interesting and fun job you're doing. Very different than working out, guys who are, say, in construction, mixing cement in a hot sun or something. That's a tough job, still probably pretty fun for the guy, but that's a hard job. This kind of job in general, you're sitting in an air-conditioned room painting landscapes and making up aliens and stuff. Nothing to get depressed about. You know what I'm saying? So you got to mentally just prepare yourself to psych yourself up and keep yourself happy. So anyways, this video is sort of coming to an end, and here it is, by the way, showing you guys the without the black border. I really like this look. Kind of looks traditional, like how comps were done in the gouache days when we just paint directly on the board. And it looks just like this, all the paints kind of mixing together and you're borrowing colors from each other, and I sort of like it. So again, for you guys, Merry Christmas to you guys. Tomorrow's Christmas, it's Christmas Eve, so have a really good holiday break, and yeah, give us the feedback. If you're interested in working with us, leave that or contact us in email, and hopefully I'll see you guys in just another 2 weeks with another video, because we are trying to ramp this up. Okay, until then, thank you so much and have a good break, and I'll see you guys on episode 79. Bye bye guys.